Let's get this party started!
He's shining a light in the dark corners of our media.
You are fake news.
Our government.
Handling of classified documents.
And our culture.
Don't trust anyone.
It's common sense amidst chaos.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Here's your host, Ike Wingate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. It is Monday, July 7th, 2025, and we are glad you are with us. Survived the Independence Day celebration and weekend. Hopefully you have all your fingers and toes and both ears and at least one eye, because we are going to show you some disturbing information now out regarding the Epstein files, or lack thereof, specifically related to the client list. This is causing a great mistrust to grow inside of especially people on the right who have been wanting these files released in their entirety, specifically the client list. And we've been given a memo from the DOJ late last night, and it's not good. And so we're going to get into that, plus some released video regarding the jail cell, what it does and does not show, as well as the lies surrounding the Texas flooding. Just a tragic, tragic event from over the weekend. Flash flooding, waters rising several feet in just a few minutes. And unfortunately, I believe the count right now is 91 confirmed dead around the Kerrville, Texas area. And so we're going to get into some of that. Plus, the Border Patrol has been ambushed. More and more of these radical people are coming out and doing crazy things. And there's a push, allegedly, according to Charlie Kirk behind the scenes right now, for Donald Trump to declare mass amnesty. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all, because we've got two conflicting ideals that are coming together, and one of them has to give, regarding deportations and the workforce in this country. And I've gone over this, and it's not popular here on the right. If you are on the right, I'm a constitutional conservative, and I believe you break the law, you have to be held accountable. I'm also a realist and very pro-business and capitalism. And we have a problem here. And I'm not saying that because I want there to be a problem. I'm saying it because I'm having conversations with people that employ a lot of people. And I'm not saying, anybody that's come in the last 10 years, I would say, yeah, go ahead and deport them. Certainly you get out the criminals first. But there are people that have been here over 10 years, never broken the law, have paid taxes, that I would argue should be allowed to stay, not as U.S. citizens, but maybe some sort of work visa status or something indefinitely. And if they break the law, they have to leave. They have to pay a fine. Their employer has to pay a fine. So there is justice. It just seems like it is counterintuitive to kick good people out who have a track record for doing good work, not breaking the law, and paying their taxes. These are the kind of people we want here, but they don't have the option of becoming a U.S. citizen fully and cannot vote. I believe that is a common sense compromise to avoid gutting our workforce of the kind of people that we want here. And that would make a lot of people on the right very mad. And I understand that. It's about principle. I get it. If you really want to solve this problem once and for all, this is the way. And I could sit here and say things that I know will be more popular with the audience, but I'm actually trying to solve problems and finally get over this deportation hump, this illegal immigration hump. You establish an actual principled approach to it where you're not diminishing the people that have come over here the right way. They get more rights. They get more privileges. So you're still upholding the integrity of the law for those folks. while simultaneously you're figuring out a way to not create some additional problem with the workforce. I'm telling you, I think it's the way to go. But that's not always popular. But I could sit here and tell you, oh, yeah, doesn't matter. Deport no matter what. Well, people that are saying that are not having conversations with actual businesses in this country that have experience with people who have done things the right way. Or I'm sorry, they have behaved the right way. They did not come in the right way. Okay, granted that's why they are diminished some of the rights afforded to actual U.S. citizens. If you're actually having those conversations with real business in America, real industry in America, then you would, I think, come to that same conclusion. But it's very easy to stay in our echo chambers and, have this idea that it's so black and white. It's just not. Mostly Penny says, stop counting them in the census and then we can have this conversation. Well, that would be another part of that for sure. The census question. I mean, there's a law that's a bill, rather, that's being developed right now to stop counting illegal immigrants in the census. Here's the thing about this, though, okay, on the census. Because, yes, the census is a way for Democrats to get more representation in Congress because it's based on population, electoral college votes as well. That is the way to game the system. But here's the other side of this. If you have a ton of people that you aren't counting in areas, the census relates a lot to federal funding for certain areas, for roads and infrastructure and things like that. So the scenario is you could have an area with a lot more people than you're getting appropriated funding for, which I would think makes a lot of local municipalities and states not happy. Now, ideally, the solution is deport the people out of here. And then you don't have a lot of people that you have to maintain an infrastructure for that you're not getting appropriated funding in order to accommodate. Now, that opens up another question in the scenario I just laid out for an actual common sense way to solve some problems. If these people are here on a certain work status and they are agreeing to the terms of not being able to vote and otherwise, I would probably argue those particular people, I would call them preferred guests, maybe. How about that? Preferred guests, that maybe those people do need to be counted because there's going to be areas where they are putting stress on the infrastructure and appropriate funds need to be allocated for that area based on more people being there. I wouldn't die on that hill, but I could see that being a big rub for a lot of people when it comes to that particular scenario. Otherwise, someone explained to me, if you deport every single person here illegally, even though they've been here over 10 years, even though they've paid taxes, even though they've never been in trouble with the law, you go deport those people out of the country, you are gutting a lot of industries and creating real challenges. And guess what? The cost of all those things is going to go up, because then the wage that people are going to have to be paid to replace them, if they can even replace them, is going to be way higher. You might say, well, that's good. The problem is there's just not enough people that are willing to do these kind of jobs that we know of yet. Now, you could argue, well, we've made it too easy for people not to work. I would say, yeah, if you get hungry enough, you'll do just about any job, right? So there's a ton of factors involved in this. But I still come back to, what if they're the kind of person that we want here anyway? It's very easy to have this point of view that, well, if you're here illegally, you're just bad. Well, you made a mistake in the way that you did it, and you have to pay for that. You pay a fine. Your employer pays a fine. You never get U.S. citizen status. If you get in trouble with the law, you have to leave. I mean, you can make it really strict. But what you're doing is you're getting rid of the exact kind of people we want here. Law-abiding, hardworking, tax-paying. That is the kind of people we want here. Right? So the thing is, all you need to do if you want to have a better understanding of this is go talk to some people in business or go talk to someone like this and realize, you know what, this is a really hardworking person who actually loves our country. Whatever circumstances they came into the country, maybe they were really young. I don't know. That happens a lot. But you would talk to them and it would humanize the situation for you. Now, if you go talk to somebody like that and you say, nope, okay, I respect your opinion. But if you haven't really experienced those scenarios and have conversations with those people, but you still have this hard black and white point of view on it, I would say that's not an informed way of doing it. Mostly Penny says there's already a sponsorship program. Yes and no. Not particularly what I'm talking about, because there are people here that are here illegally that are not on a sponsorship program. Okay. You have to create, I would call it a different program specifically for these kinds of people. A special status. And that's still not amnesty. I'm not talking about amnesty. I'm not talking about U.S. citizenship and full rights of U.S. citizenship. I'm not talking about that at all. But let's say someone's been here illegally and they haven't paid taxes. They're out. Let's say someone's been here illegally. They've paid their taxes, but they've been in trouble with the law. They're out. But I'm not talking about U.S. citizenship. I'm trying to solve the problem. This is a way to solve the problem. All right. Anyway, apparently there is a huge push for Trump to declare amnesty going on behind the scenes. Okay. That is one thing we'll talk about, even though I just talked about it a bunch. And then we'll talk about Mamdani in New York City, this guy. All right. You can help us out right now by smashing the thumbs up and reposting, as well as hearting the post on X and reposting. Those are some things you can do. If you want to see what we're going to show you on the screen, you got to follow us over to X or Rumble by hitting the link in my bio. I will not be doing a show tomorrow. I thought that I would be available, but I have mistaken. So I will not be on tomorrow. My hope is on Thursday, maybe Wednesday, but for sure Thursday, coming back and actually being on at noon Central, 1 Eastern and trying to get that as our normal time slot. That's what I'm trying to do. I was supposed to be on Newsmax 2 earlier, and because of the press conference from Caroline Leavitt, our whole segment got bumped. So I'm like, well, I'm already dressed, ready. Might as well just go for it, right? Obviously, I do a lot of research for these hits. When I don't get to use it, it just seems like a freaking waste of time. So anyway, normally I wouldn't be coming on with you on Monday. That's why I'm here with you on Monday. And I think that gives you everything you need to know. But help us out in the algorithm. We're going to be showing you some video here regarding the jail cell surrounding Epstein. And if you want to see that, you got to follow us over to X or Rumble. All right. If you want to support the work we're doing, we are 100% funded by your contributions. Okay. I volunteer my time to bring you this information. And if you want to help us cover our hard costs, you can do so by contributing via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com. Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com. All right, let's get into this first story, big story. Where are the Epstein client lists? Where are they? Where is it? According to Axios, the DOJ and FBI have wrapped up their investigation. Epstein died by suicide, apparently, and there was never a client list, apparently. This is the memo that they put out. Gosh. Let me see if I can zoom in at all here. Okay, well, I thought. Okay. All right. Well, that is too difficult to see. But basically, you go through this memo, and basically, they're saying the video footage from the common area of the special housing unit where Epstein was held shows nobody going in or out. And so they're like, yeah, there's no other explanation. And they say that footage has confirmed that the time that Epstein was locked up in his cell around 10:40 p.m. until around 6:30 a.m. the next day, and nobody entered any of the tiers in the area. During this review, the FBI enhanced the relevant footage by increasing its contrast, balancing the color, and improving its sharpness for greater clarity and viewability. Okay. And let's see. After a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein did unalive himself. Okay. And then basically that there isn't a client list after all this time. Let me see if I can get a better view of this here. Okay. All right. So this is Axios. The administration released this video, blah, blah, blah. And the memo says no one else involved in the case will be charged. You might recall his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. She is serving a 20-year sentence for, trafficking and related offenses. But nobody else. It's like, wait a minute. What about the people that committed the crimes with the people? I mean, how is Ghislaine Maxwell serving a 20-year sentence if nobody else was involved? Investigators found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, according to the memo. Okay. Obviously, people are very frustrated. And Anna Paulina Luna tweeted out, "This is not what we or the American people asked for, and a complete disappointment. Get us the information we asked for." Okay. So this is really kind of crazy. How you basically have a big time split on the MAGA side now here, right? Or you have MAGA being really upset with part of Trump's administration, with Pam Bondi not releasing this. Now you remember Elon Musk tweeted out one night that Trump was implicated in these files. He since deleted the tweet. There's been plenty of people that have been involved that said he was never implicated. He only is listed in there because they did know each other, but Epstein knew everybody. And Trump is one of the only people that actually helped the FBI in the investigation years ago after he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for being inappropriate with a young female staffer. So that's not the reason this is happening or isn't happening. So what is the reason? And this is what's so crazy is Dan Bongino, Kash Patel inside the FBI. I mean, these are the guys who were saying before they became part of the administration, like, there's something going on here. There's more to it. We need to see these files. And now they're just like, it's like they've been neuralized. Somebody thinks they've been cloned because they are just like, nope, there's nothing there. It's freaking weird, man. It's really weird. All right, so today, Peter Doocy of Fox News inside the White House press briefing room asked Caroline Leavitt, what about it?
So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But
so clearly, Pam Bondi has a lot to answer for here. A lot of people not happy with Pam Bondi. All right, let's keep going. Let's get it all in here. Okay, so here's the footage they've released. Okay, if I could just for a moment, we were told that the Epstein files and the client list was going to be released. Back in February, this big to-do and a bunch of files were released that had already been released to influencers, and then it was discovered, oh, wait, actually the New York field office is the one that has been holding back all of this information, and we're going to get it. And then we're reviewing hours and hours of footage, and now the conclusion is there's no there. Nobody else to be charged. How is that possible when there's this many victims? How can you not charge anyone else? What other explanation could there be? And then we see the video of outside the cell release. Wait a minute. I thought the guards fell asleep. I thought the cameras quit working. They said nobody else went in. Here's the crazy thing is on this video, right as it turns to 11:59, it jumps 1 minute to midnight. Wait a minute. Where's that last minute? Was it a glitch? Was it intentional? I don't know, but it doesn't look good. And again, it contradicts what we've been told about this whole scenario. It is not making sense. Who is controlling the release of this information? At the very least, it seems like Pam Bondi doesn't know what she's doing. I don't know. It's just not a good look. Transparency cures a lot of ills, okay? Transparency will right a lot of wrongs, and that is what we need right now. Transparency. All right, so again, it's probably hard to see on the screen here, but you see where a minute is missing. If you look at the timestamp down below, 11:58, and as soon as it's about to go to 11:59, it jumps ahead to midnight. Okay, so is there something here? I don't know, but all the internet sleuths out there are going crazy about this because, wait a minute, you have the video the whole entire time, nothing happens. Wait a minute, where's that minute? Where did it go? And remember, the guards fell asleep. Nobody checked on them because the guards fell asleep and the cameras weren't working. Well, wait a minute. We need some explanation here. This is what is so shocking because this is not the typical MO when it comes to President Trump. This is not the kind of operation he runs. He doesn't have loyalty to the system. And so I just would be shocked that he okayed this. Don't underestimate the importance of these files when it relates to the support of the Republican base, especially MAGA. And people kind of want to, diminish this thing or not think it's as big of it. It is a huge deal politically to a lot of people. And just with botching this particular release and investigation, you can lose a lot of political credibility, a lot of currency, that you've built up. If I were an advisor, I would be saying you have to do everything you can to get this out. You have to do everything it's not going to change anyone's life. It's not going to save people more money. It's not going to lower the cost of groceries or gas or, help with U.S. manufacturing. It's not going to help with foreign policy. It's not going to help securing the border. You could argue, hey, this is inconsequential. Wrong. The optics of this entire thing, the perception of this, the credibility at stake with this cannot be underestimated. If I were an advisor, I would be saying to President Trump and those in his administration, this is not going to cut it. You might think it's inconsequential, but from a credibility standpoint, from an accountability standpoint, from the standpoint of transparency and trust, this is huge. You have to do better than this. All right. Let's see here. And so now, it's like, okay, well, that's because Epstein was working with some big time intelligence agencies, or at least one big one, and they have put their thumb on the scale and said, if this gets released, what it is going to do from the standpoint of public trust is going to be gargantuan. And or they might be saying, we don't have the leverage. We paid a lot of money to get the leverage we have on people in power and influence, and you are not going to undo that. It's kind of interesting. You got Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu visiting the White House today, actually. I don't know. It's super strange. It's not a good look. And it really is disappointing. Chunky says this pisses me off. And I think that's probably the feeling for a lot of people. Mostly Penny says, conspiracy theorists, government agencies can't tell a lie. Patty says someone is drinking the Kool-Aid. Another Patty says, unbelievable. Let's see. There are too many lies in this. Gaslighting at its finest. That's what Not Michelle is saying. Rocky says maybe evidence was deleted, or maybe some people were brainwashed. Maybe both. So you got this missing minute of footage. Now, let's look at this. Okay, we got Mike Benz, who's been talking about this. He says Alex Acosta, the DOJ official who gave Jeffrey Epstein the sweetheart plea deal back in 2008 and was quoted saying he was told to back off Epstein because he belonged to intelligence, mysteriously had all 11 months of DOJ emails to him in that time period mysteriously disappear. Apparently where he was told to back off, that he belonged, he was an intelligence asset. He got a sweetheart deal. Those emails apparently are gone. 11 months of emails were missing from Acosta's emails when the DOJ investigated. DOJ's Office of Personnel Responsibility told victims' lawyers in November of 2020 that it discovered a data gap. Oh, that's a clever word. Data gap of roughly 11 months in Alexander Acosta's incoming email inbox. The gap covers the period from early May 2007 through mid-April 2008, the very span when prosecutors were drafting a 60-count federal indictment of Jeffrey Epstein, negotiating and then watering down the non-prosecution agreement and deciding not to arrest him. What they said about the gap, only incoming messages were missing. Acosta's sent mail was intact. Interesting. IT staff and Acosta all told investigators they had no idea that the messages were gone. The OPR technicians concluded the loss was most likely a technological error during a server migration and found no evidence of deliberate deletion. No effort has yet recovered those emails either, and they remain unavailable in the public record. Interestingly enough. Okay, so if he belongs to intelligence and he's a big intelligence asset, then one would conclude there's a lot of people that don't want this information released because they've obviously paid a lot of money to get it over the years. Now, the weird thing is, here's another thing that's not making sense. This was the picture that was put out of Jeffrey Epstein's cell with the police crime scene tape across it. And this is what we were told. Hey, this was the cell. Well, wait a minute. The video that just got released doesn't look anything like that. You see the difference here? The video on top, or the photo on top, was the video that we just showed you. By the way, if you want to see what we're showing you, you got to come over to X or Rumble because they won't let us show you over here on TikTok on the screen. But on the top, that's this new video they put out where they said they adjusted lighting or whatever. And then on the bottom is that previously released photo of the cell. So which one of these was the lie? Again, another factor that isn't adding up in all of this. This is just not a good look. Not a good look. As Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen points out here, we got the timeline. November 2024. We'll tease a major file drop. January 2025 claims client list is on the desk. Pam Bondi, client list is on the desk. In February, releases the redacted reruns and blames the FBI field office in New York for having all the files and withholding them. And then in March says a truckload of documents were coming. And then in May mentions thousands of videos. Well, we got to get through them. I mean, Kash Patel went on a Joe Rogan show and said, don't you think we would release it if it was something and blah, blah, blah. And then now here in July, there's no new videos. There's no client list. There's no additional charge. I mean, this is freaking weird. What a huge disaster, I would say. Look, after a huge last few weeks for the Trump administration, incredible accomplishments. Now the DOJ is, supposed to operate outside of the White House, right? So you could argue they're their own separate thing. But I mean, Pam Bondi, that's who President Trump picked. Kash Patel, that's who President Trump picked. What is going on with these people? This is a disaster from the standpoint of this particular issue. Now, it doesn't change all the huge wins that Trump has. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when it comes to this subject, right now it's in disaster territory. I mean, let's look at the evolution of Dan Bongino back in 2023.
That Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Listen,
okay.
That Jeffrey Epstein story is a
first clip, 2023, the one you just heard, the very short one, was a couple weeks ago. Totally different. Now, I will grant you this. It's real easy to sit out here on the outside and say, this doesn't make sense. There are problems with this. And then once you get on the inside and you actually see what's going on, then you have the facts on it. But for someone to be so gung-ho about it and telling people on his platform, do not let this story die, and then, there's nothing there. And then this release today, there's no other charges happening. There's nothing else. There's nothing else coming. Wait a minute. I thought you were reviewing hours and hours and hours of footage. Like, this is a freaking disaster. It's a disaster. And look, there's plenty of people on TikTok that, oh, you love Trump so much, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, I support President Trump. I am a free and critical thinker and can call things out when things are not done like they should be done. That's why you can trust the information you get, because this is not a show that has loyalty to a particular candidate, politician. They're supposed to be held accountable by us, or a party. Okay? Obviously, I am a registered Republican. That doesn't mean I like what the Republicans do a lot of the times. But I think they give us the best chance for having the most free society. And they also actually have not lost their ever-loving mind completely, even though there's plenty of people in the Republican Party that have lost their mind, that have been there in power too long as far as leadership goes. But I'm just going to tell you the truth, and the truth as I see it here is this is a disaster. It was a botched release when they released it to those influencers inside the White House where there was nothing new in there. That was a mistake. And that was strike number one for me. And it's like, oh, well, we didn't really know. Wait a minute. You're investigating this and you don't realize that all of these files have already been released? That you just said were released? As in a new tranche of files? No. Well, okay. So I chalked it up to, okay, well, someone didn't do their job right. Okay. And then it's like, well, people were sabotaging and withholding inside the FBI, the DOJ. Okay, you give them a little bit of grace on that, but still the whole thing just wasn't a good look. It was like it was rushed or wasn't thought out. But this is 10 times worse. Because it's basically like, we've been telling you this whole time that we are going to be transparent with this stuff. We are going to release the goods. And then it's like, there's nothing there. Now, I don't know why. I'm not going to assume motives or, ultimately the buck stops with Pam Bondi on this, on whether the DOJ would pursue. But I'm not going to ascribe motive or anything like that. It's just, it needs to be dealt with very quickly. There needs to be transparency and communication on this, because this releasing this thing Sunday night after the holiday, I don't know if they're like, well, we'll release it now because we got huge momentum, inside the administration, and I would just find it hard to believe that President Trump would be okay with this. Which my instinct is there are some people inside the DOJ. This couldn't have been released without Pam Bondi's okay. But it just seems like there are some saboteurs inside the DOJ on this particular deal or something. If they came out and said, we can't release the names because this is part of an intelligence operation and it is a matter of national security, and the deeper we dug, the more we found out, and now that we know what we know, it's not something we can release. There are too many security implications involved in it. You wouldn't be happy about it, but you'd go, okay, well, at least they're telling us what's going on. Right now, there's nothing. There's nothing. Patty says they must think the American people are stupid. Rocky, do you think Dan has been compromised? Mostly Penny says even the servers have migration issues. The missing minute, not Michelle says, is with the lizard people. Do I think Dan Bongino's been compromised? Things look a lot different when you're on the inside. Okay. I'm just going to give you a very, very not anywhere near the scope of this situation example of when you are on the inside of how certain decisions are made, especially in government, it changes the way that you think about it. I use this example as just working on a campaign for a re-election for an elected official, okay, years ago. My perception going in was we got all these problems with this and this and this and this and this. And then after having many conversations on the inside with this elected official, I gained a much different perspective on every step and everything that was done on the way for certain decisions to be made. And then I understood. But there were plenty of people online that were saying, oh, it's because of this and it's because of that. And they're always alleging some kind of corruption. I get it. I understand that's not the worst instinct to have, is just to assume corruption, but it's not always what it appears to be. And then when you actually get in behind the scenes of the inner circle of how the decisions are made or why or what factor may have contributed that the public was not privy to, you start to go, okay. Now, it doesn't mean you just, blindly go through it like a, robot. I'm just saying I latch on to that personal experience as a possibility for what Bongino may be experiencing, which is when you're sitting in this seat, that's what's really nice about this is you can pretty much just be skeptical of anyone and everyone and everything all the time because it plays well from an entertainment standpoint, because people want the conspiracy, they want the skepticism, they want the outrage. That's what we want. But then when you get in there and you're actually doing the job and then you get knowledge of how it's actually done and why, and there are things you can't say because of security, I would imagine it changes a person's perspective. Does that mean he's compromised? I don't think so. I just think Bongino has been read in on some things that he had no idea were going on. And now he's like, maybe one day he can come out and say, yeah, I got it wrong. I had no idea what was really happening. Well, that's part of the problem, though, with the government is they know all this stuff and we don't. Now, I get it. You got the mob mentality is not good. You get enough people together and they decide one thing, that doesn't mean it's smart. Okay. It's just psychology. Sometimes, though, if you release certain information, people can't handle it and they behave in an erratic way. I can understand that concern, but at the same time, I would be erring on the side of more transparency rather than less. I think, there are some people that'll run over a cliff, but there are plenty of other normal, level-headed people that would go, okay, well, at least now we know. We don't like it, but now we know. And so I don't know what's going on with Dan Bongino. If you just look at the way look at how he's changed. He's he looks a little dead inside compared to how he used to look. Now, some of it's studio lighting. I've noticed, I'm like, man, the haircut seems a little bit different, but he looks like a guy that has been exposed to things that he wish he never had to be exposed to. And now he has to come out and say that he was wrong, basically, that, hey, he thought that there was something there and there wasn't. Right. So anyway, we see these various timelines. I mean, you remember this imagery outside of the White House where these influencers got the special invite that they were coming there to meet JD Vance, but apparently Pam Bondi showed up and they gave him this release of the Epstein files. Well, they didn't know what was in it. They thought it was the smoking gun. It turned out to be a nothing burger. And so the whole thing has just been poorly managed. And I mean, that really comes down to Pam Bondi, does it not? I mean, who else would you be looking at? It's just very disappointing. How do you have Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for crimes with other people, yet those other people never get brought up and investigated? How does that make any sense? How is that possible? I mean, the way that they're making it out is that it was just Epstein and just Ghislaine Maxwell, and those two were abusing people, and that's it. Well, we absolutely know that's not the case by itself. We know some of the names. In fact, some of the victims are dead now. And so there's nobody, I mean, this doesn't make any sense. You got to do better than this. I'm just hoping there's a logical explanation that somebody got ahead of themselves on releasing this or something like that. Because if this is what they're going with, that is a big, big mistake. Huge mistake. Nah, there's no client list. Who are the co-conspirators? Who are the co-conspirators? That's what I'd like to know. Because if it's just Ghislaine Maxwell and just Epstein, what about all these other people that we know were part of it, who we know were on the travel manifests on the Lolita Express? What about those people? What about the island? It's just not a good look. It's not a good look. I'm really disappointed. I know a lot of you are disappointed. And I'm sort of in this place where I'm like, all right, well, on the surface, right now, unacceptable, huge mistake. Someone has some explaining to do. But I am going to reserve ultimate judgment until some time has passed to see if they do something more with this. Because I can tell you the outrage is mounting. Patriot Grandma says, did the deep state dupe Cash and Bondi? Did they dupe them? I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, did they blackmail them too? I mean, what's going on here? I mean, that is a scenario that's possible, is that people that report to Trump are telling him there's nothing there. And he's like, what do you mean? You told me there was. What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, Mr. President, we've looked into it. There's nothing. And yet someone's blackmailing them. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Or I think the other possibility is the people that are on that list, if you release a few, you end up releasing all of them or something to that effect, and that the implications are too disastrous for peace in the world, and I would call it global leaders, that it can't be released. Or there is some type of leverage we are able to use by not releasing it that we need to get. But otherwise, I don't see a whole lot of other scenarios that make much sense at all. I mean, the other scenario would be someone's trying to cover things up, cover their tracks. Rocky says, what if they're saying there isn't a list because they don't want to spook the ones they are building a case on? That's a possibility, but they didn't have to come out and say this in order to do that. They could have been doing that all along. They should have been doing that all along, right? And so the people that are on the list know they're on the list. So anything's possible, but I tend to not go with the, it's actually part of a really, smart plan. I know a lot of people do, and I blame Q for that. It's just like the automatic, this is actually part of a really coordinated thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm not saying this scenario, but I'm saying I tend to not go in that direction because so many people do that on like so many little things. By the way, Alex Jones said there is this big event that was going to happen July 4th, and it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a mass casualty event. That happen? No. I'm just getting really fatigued with people on the right who are, I'm obviously very just done with people on the left. They're nuts in media. But people on the right gaslighting these scare tactic things, and nothing ever happens. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Not Michelle says, there is no list. There's no list. There were never any names. Nothing ever happened. Not Michelle says, well, the Texas flood started. Yes, it did. But that is not what Alex Jones was talking about. He was talking about a terrorist attack. Okay. Let's get into the flooding. I mean, this is heartbreaking stuff. Heartbreaking stuff. You have a Christian camp of all girls, 700 plus girls there, and I think something like 25 of them have been found dead. The waters rose rapidly overnight, something like 40 feet or 25 feet in 40 minutes. I mean, you have various metrics being put out as it relates to that. TikTok is making sure I'm still with them. By the way, if you want to see what we're going to show you on the screen, follow us over to X or Rumble by hitting the link in my bio. Make sure you're following me as well if you're watching on TikTok. So, yeah, I just think about it. Like, my kids have just been in camp. A camp similar to this. And they showed this little girl on TV today that passed away, picture of her, the things that she liked. She was at this camp to have fun, learn about God. And then this tragedy. I mean, it was so relatable to me. It hit me. It was just so gut-wrenching. I mean, the girl that they showed looked so much like one of my daughters. Like, it was just weird. So things happen sometimes. Can't explain it. I always come back to God uses everything, even things that are meant for evil, for good, for his plan, for those that are called according to his purposes. He works all things together for good. I always have to come back to that because there's just so many things that are, you can't explain them. And so it's absolutely heartbreaking. The people on the left are trying to blame Trump for the flooding. They're trying to blame him. They're trying to say that because of the Doge cuts, the National Weather Service and the NOAA situation department was gutted and they didn't have the proper people there to issue the warnings. Well, I got to tell you, the warnings were issued for hours in advance. Now, the problem is nobody could have guessed that the water would rise that much in such a short period of time, that this rain front would just stall out over the area. I mean, I saw it happen in Nashville back in 2010. It was crazy. You know, you got a front that just stalls out and floods. Now, nobody could have predicted that it was going to happen like that, but they put out extreme flood warnings hours in advance. The problem is most of it happened, at 4 a.m. And so it's just sort of a perfect storm, for lack of a better term, of things that had to happen a certain way, but it has zero to do with NOAA, not having adequate staffing. They had more staffing on hand than they normally would that night. They put out all the warnings. Unfortunately, because it was in the middle of the night, the warnings weren't heeded. I mean, there's going to be an examination of what could or should have been done at that camp and other places. But again, it's one of those things. It's impossible until it happens. And you go, oh, crap. I mean, think about COVID. People in America won't wear masks. Well, it can't happen until it happens. And then your mind has that possibility in it of what if. But you hear of the camp director dying after rescuing several girls. I mean, it's just sad all around. Sad all around. All right, so the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, asked about this earlier today, about this National Weather Service and, blaming the Doge cuts and blah, blah, blah. Here's what it sounded like.
Are there concerns within the White House or from the president himself over the cuts that happened under Musk while he was advising Doge, including the National Weather Service?
I think I've already addressed that, Kristen, and what I can tell you is that these offices were fully staffed. The San Angelo office was fully staffed with 12 forecast meteorologists. There were no vacancies. The San Antonio office was operating with 11 forecasters. And as Brian said, the union themselves said that there was adequate staffing. So I think those words speak for themselves and the numbers speak for themselves. This was a once in a century flash flood, a tragic natural disaster. And the administration is doing all that we can on the ground to help these families during this time of need.
All right. So that was, one of the attempts to try to blame. Somehow Trump is responsible for flooding. What's interesting is how the liberal media covers this when Trump's in office versus when Biden was in office, like in North Carolina. And we have some clips for you 2 weeks after that North Carolina flood, and then 2 days after this Texas flood, and how Dana Bash covered both events. Take a look.
The former president is falsely accusing federal relief agencies of maliciously withholding and misusing aid. Take a listen.
We give foreign countries hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're handing North Carolina $750. If you want a president who won't even try to save you when the floodwaters are rising, vote for Kamala.
What you just heard is not true. They're rumors and they're lies, and they are hurting the very people that thousands of FEMA emergency responders are trying to help. It's raw politics and dangerous politics. A lot of the people who are believing these lies are Trump voters. Why is he spreading misinformation in a crisis like that? And does that concern you about your fellow North Carolinians?
You have migrants being housed in luxury hotels in New York City. We have paid so much money from our tax dollars into the crisis that didn't need to happen. We could redirect money to help people immediately on the ground in North Carolina.
Laura, they're saying
Florida,
that they have
probably going to have a situation coming up in the next several days.
That's a separate tranche of money. That's a separate tranche of money. Just talking about the federal government and even the local government, 2 Texas National Weather Service offices involved in forecasting and warning about flooding on the Guadalupe River are missing some key staff members. A director of the NWS union told CNN that the Austin San Antonio office is missing a warning coordination meteorologist due to the Trump administration's buyouts. Do you have any indication whether those or other cuts helped play a role in the fact that the people in the flood zone were not prepared and certainly not evacuated? The former president.
All right, 2 very different ways of covering a natural disaster like this, where she was running basically a defense campaign of President Biden during the North Carolina floods. And then 2 days after the Texas floods, she's trying to blame Trump because of some coordinator. Well, here are the facts, friends. This is from NOAA. The National Weather Service office in Austin and San Antonio issued a flood watch 12 hours before the flood, 12 hours before the flood, and a flash flood warning 3 hours in advance. A dangerous situation, it said, 3 hours in advance. That has nothing to do with someone being there or not being there. It's time-stamped and official. Okay? 12 hours before this hit, the evening before, you had a flash flood watch. Now, they didn't heed that as important enough. And I understand, because you get those flash flood watches and you're like, okay, well, people that are in low-lying areas near rivers should be looking at flash flood watches with extreme caution if it's in their area, and that was the case in this situation. So you had the flash flood watch in the evening prior to, and then 3 hours before all hell broke loose, there was a flash flood warning, not a watch, a warning, which means it is happening. And they issued it for this specific area, expecting a lot of rainfall in the warned area. And it is a life-threatening flooding situation. Life-threatening flash flooding. Okay? Now, again, no one expected it to stall out and do what it did, but there was no problem with the warning. And this really comes, the left thinks they can do anything and everything they want. They don't want to allow any possibility for God or just a natural disaster. They always blame this kind of stuff on climate change. And now they want to blame the lack of a warning that they see because of budget cuts. The warning's there. They did everything they were supposed to do. The reality here is humans are limited in their power and scope of what they can know ahead of time. I mean, that's the really blatant black and white truth that the left never wants to acknowledge, because there is no God to the left except for government. And so, again, you weren't going to be able to warn your way out of this situation if people weren't taking these warnings seriously. And again, I give grace, because it's like nobody expected this to happen. Well, that's what we have here. And, you know, there's going to be people that are talking about cloud seeding, and these are the reasons these kind of storms. I don't know what the truth is on that, okay? I find it really hard to believe when we start talking about these disasters being orchestrated so people can develop the land. Okay, that is it doesn't mean it's not possible, but when you have corporations with $1 bazillion, there are much less expensive, much less catastrophic means in which to accomplish that same goal. And so I find it hard to believe. Do I think it's impossible? No. Now, I think the possibility of weather manipulation because of technology and people wanting to play God is far more likely than it's a land grab. But the technology exists, and it has for a long time, for manipulating the weather to try to produce more rain or whatever. And we've seen some really crazy storms. Now, it's a possibility. I mean, our weather systems and patterns, we have only been truly logging those and keeping track of those, I mean, for not even 100 years. We have a very limited scope when it comes to the historical data on weather. Very limited. And so, for all time, there will be seasons and cyclical changes that happen on the earth. Okay? We just have our little spot in time that we think is, this is just reality. The way it's, wait a minute, it's getting hotter than it normally does, or it's getting colder than, it's got to be climate change. So we can, usher in a bunch of mandates and edicts for people to, have electric vehicles or whatever it is. So it very well could be just cyclical, seasonal changes over a period of time. But this guy, the CEO of Rainmaker, was on the Sean Ryan show at some point talking about this cloud seeding and weather manipulation. It's the CEO of Rainmaker. They do this.
One interesting part of all this is that it's not really like a partisan issue, right? It's not that like Republicans like it and Democrats don't, or vice versa, or that Republicans know about it and Democrats don't. It's really everything west of the Mississippi people have some knowledge of this because those are the driest states in the union. They've been cloud seeding for the longest amount of time, or they've experimented with it the most because they need the water most desperately. So Colorado and California, Texas and Idaho, they all have weather modification programs that the state funds.
How long have they had those programs?
So cloud seeding was invented in the United States. It's an American technology that was done for the first time in New York in 1946. So the very first effective weather modification operations were done in the 40s, after World War II. Then there have been a series of programs that have popped up either domestically or abroad in the decades in between. But we've never actually been able to prove that it works until 2017.
All right, so I don't know what happened in 2017, kind of a cliffhanger, but weather manipulation could be at play in this. And you're not going to hear me say it's for a land grab, because it's just, as I stated before, there are much cheaper, less catastrophic ways in which a big corporation that needs land can get it. Not saying it's not possible, but I'm not going there without hard proof. But weather modification or manipulation, when humans try to play God, it doesn't go well. And that is a possibility. Now, I've seen no evidence specifically in this case that that's what was going on. I've seen plenty of people say, I don't understand how this, storm just stalled right there for so long and dumped so much water in such a small area. Sometimes things just happen that you can't explain. Doesn't mean there's some grand thing going on, but it could be the weather modification, manipulation factor could have caused something too, maybe. I don't know. All I know is what we do know is it's a tragedy, that warnings were given in advance, that it wasn't because of any cuts, that people didn't get warnings. And unfortunately, there are many parents and family members that are going to have to bury their children as a result of this. It's heartbreaking. There's no other way to put it. It's tragic. Now, if it comes to light that somebody caused this, I hope they die a death. Okay. Probably shouldn't go there. I hope they get what they deserve, if that were to be found out. But at this point, tragedy happens. How do you respond in the midst of a tragedy? The statements I've seen come out from some of the parents is, for a situation where your kids are learning about God and worshiping and celebrating and learning more, and then you get to go meet him right then or very soon after, they're looking at it as a positive thing. Because those of us that, believe what the Bible says, what it says about heaven, what it says about death. The wild thing is if you believe that, then when you die and you exit this world, it is a glorious moment. And people that have crossed over would never come back. They wouldn't come back because they are, in the fullness of glory and those promises that are made. And so it's, to me, living life without that hope of eternity in heaven and all wrongs are righted and we are not held to account and punished for all the wrongs we've committed, it actually allows for death to not have that sting. The tragedy is there, the sadness of not being with that individual. But to me, with as tough as death is and as inexplainable and hard to grasp details around a situation like this, the only thing that makes sense is to view it in the way that God presents it in his word, in that this is actually what it's all for. And this is a glorious moment, better than you can imagine. And so for people that have gone to heaven, they wouldn't come back to earth. They would stay there if they were given the choice. And so I think, when you have that perspective, while it is extremely, extremely painful, I think at least what I'm reading with the parents and the way they were looking at this is, that their child is in a much better place. There's no sin, there's no sorrow, there's no tears, there's no sadness. But in the interim, before the reunion occurs, there is sadness and loss here on earth. I can't imagine it. I hope I never have to. I think we have to pray for these people. All right, I'm going to whiplash you into a totally different situation here. And we're talking about the Medicaid work requirement. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, was with CNN over the weekend. And of course, Dana Bash tried to rip Bessent about the work requirements, how, unreasonable.
I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot of the concern, including and especially from Republicans who are the most vocal in Congress, about the fact that those work requirements are going to be very cumbersome to actually prove, and it will inevitably force the people who need that Medicaid coverage off the rolls.
Well, first of all, the Republicans are not the most vocal on this. It is a group of Democrats who unfortunately seem to think that poor people are stupid. I don't think poor people are stupid. I think they have agency, and I think to have them register twice a year for these benefits, that it is not a burden. But these people who want to infantilize the poor and those who need these Medicaid benefits are alarmist.
Yeah, but my impression of the Republican Party is that historically you've wanted to cut through the red tape and not create more red tape. But I do want to move on because
no. But we've also wanted to put in work requirements, which somehow that was very popular under Bill Clinton, was popular under President Obama, and this Democratic Party blew out the deficit in 2020, and they never want to bring it back. But work requirements even poll well with the median Democratic voter, maybe not the fringe.
Okay, yeah. So this is what I said, I don't know, a few weeks ago on one of these appearances. This is about dignity, returning dignity to people for work. If you don't work, you don't eat. That used to be the rule. Now, I'm not talking about people who are disabled and things like that. But if you're able-bodied and you can work, but again, there's exemptions for people who are caregivers or, stay-at-home parents and like there are exceptions, okay, to what this law says. But the overall issue with it is the Democrats, the left, are trying to deem work as a requirement as a bad thing. It is a good thing. It restores dignity to the person. It produces something in our society. And if you're wanting something for free and you're able to work for it, you should be doing that. That's what's right. That's what's moral. The Democrats want you to think, oh, no. Making someone work in order to get free stuff is evil. And that having to confirm your eligibility twice a year is cumbersome, apparently, because poor people are too stupid to go to a website twice a year. I mean, they insult people. Poor people or people that need these benefits are not dumb. If they can go on Facebook, they can go on this site and renew their eligibility. But again, they want to demonize work. They basically want a bunch of people sitting around on the government dime, unable to rise up like a bunch of sheep. The more capitalistic our society is, the more individual freedoms we have because the government has little to do with whether or not we eat. When it comes to Marxist and communist control and globalism, They actually want you as dependent on the government as possible because then you are the easiest to control. But even old Bill Clinton back in the day, back in the 90s, I'll tell you what, he talked about work and dignity. For some reason, the left has gone bonkers. Back in the 90s, 1996, this clip from Bill Clinton, President Clinton at the time, is just common sense.
Nearly 30 years ago, Robert Kennedy said, "Work is the meaning of what this country is all about. We need it as individuals. We need to sense it in our fellow citizens, and we need it as a society and as a people." He was right then, and it's right now. From now on, our nation's answer to this great social challenge will no longer be a never-ending cycle of welfare. It will be the dignity, the power, and the ethic of work. Today, we are taking an historic chance to make welfare what it was meant to be, a second chance, not a way of life. This bill will help people to go to work so they can stop drawing a welfare check and start drawing a paycheck. It is now clearly better to go to work than to stay on welfare. Clearly better. Because of actions taken by the Congress in this session, it is clearly better to end the terrible, almost physical isolation of huge numbers of poor people and their children from the rest of mainstream America. We have to do that. Today, we are ending welfare as we know it. But I hope this day will be remembered not for what it ended, but for what it began. A new day that offers hope, honors responsibility, rewards work, and changes the terms of the debate.
For too many, welfare has been a way of life. For too long, it has condemned too many on welfare to a lifetime at the margins of our society. Today, we start to change all that.
Anyone who wants to receive welfare must sign an individual responsibility contract.
All right, so we got Bill Clinton, we got Al Gore, now Joe Biden.
So that they're forced to agree up front to the conditions placed on receiving the benefit. And so that they will have a plan from day one on how to get themselves off of welfare, put them to work and make them want to go to work and make it reasonable for them to go to work. It'll be mandatory work requirement for anyone receiving welfare.
They actually have charged and run ads saying that President Obama wants to weaken the work requirements in the welfare reform bill I signed that moved millions of people from welfare to work. Oh, wait, the requirement was for more work, not less. I am telling you, the claim that President Obama weakened welfare reform's work requirement is just not true.
The best anti-poverty program is a job, which confers not just income, but structure and dignity and a sense of connection to community.
2015, Obama was saying that. I mean, what has happened to the Democrat Party where it's no longer reasonable to expect someone to work for free benefits just because Trump's doing it? 80 hours a month, 20 hours a week. You could even volunteer. It's not unreasonable. And we need a society that works and does not expect a handout for doing nothing. Again, I'm not talking about disabled people or people that can't do it. I'm talking about able-bodied, truly able-bodied people need to get out there and work. All right. Elon Musk is launching a new political party, my friends, the America Party. New political party will be pro-gun and pro-Bitcoin, even though Elon Musk has indicated in the past that there should be, special restrictions on certain firearms. He says the Second Amendment is sacred, is what he's saying now. He's aiming to shake things up. President Trump called this decision ridiculous. And so this pro-America party apparently is in the works. And it'll stand for free speech and reduced regulations, Musk has indicated. Is this the America Party platform? Someone asked on X. Reduce debt, reasonable spending only, modernize military with AI and robotics, pro-tech, accelerate to win in AI, less regulation across the board, but especially in energy, free speech, pro-nationalist and centrist policies everywhere else. Musk replied, yeah. I think he's making it up as he goes. Now, look, I understand the frustration with a two-party system. I do. I understand the frustration with both parties, how they say one thing and do another. But fracturing the Republican Party with a third party is not the way to do it. I'm just telling you, I'm talking about idealism versus realism. Ideally, yeah, this is a great idea. In reality, what you're going to do is you're going to hurt the people that are actually doing something good when it comes to our governance. Yes, I know we have a uniparty. Unless you stand up another legitimate, funded political party that will fracture the Democrats too, then otherwise you're going to harm Republicans in this. I think Elon Musk should just, instead of doing that, go after things like, corrupt lobbying. Get rid of that. Primary these rhinos and do it that way. I just don't think this is going to work. It's just not going to work. I just don't think it's going to work. And Elon is like, he channels Kanye West sometimes when he's tweeting, just tweeting the craziest stuff. Very reactionary, very knee-jerk, very emotional, and makes allegations where it's like, why are you turning on these different people? What are you talking about? He's just like a major rage tweeter is what he is. But speaking of rage tweeting, President Trump put this out. I'm saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck over the past 5 weeks. He even wants to start a third party, despite the fact they've never succeeded. The system seems not designed for them. And I think he's absolutely right. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos. And we have enough of that with the radical left Democrats who've lost their confidence and their minds. Republicans, on the other hand, are a smooth running machine. They just passed the biggest bill of its kind. It's a great bill, but unfortunately for Elon, it eliminates the ridiculous electric vehicle mandate. I think Elon was not playing well. He didn't understand how the bill had to be passed, which was you couldn't put discretionary spending in it and get it passed. It has to be a separate bill for discretionary spending to be able to do the cuts that he's talking about. Literally, he was trying to do something that wasn't realistically possible, and he got mad that that's the way the government works. He had fights inside of the cabinet. He and Scott Bessent went at each other. They had different views on stimulating the economy. They didn't, he was trashing the bill left and right. He was getting in fights internally. And eventually it was just like, it is time for this guy to go. And he didn't like it. He's now not part of the inner circle. He loved being in the White House, and he is just sour grapes now. And he has just enough money, to do what he's saying, but I just don't think it's going to work. I would rather he put his effort into, spending money to primary rhinos out there as best he can. Now, additionally, Elon asked that one of his close friends run NASA, is what Trump said. And I think this is another part of the issue. While I thought his friend was very good, I was surprised to learn that he was a blue-blooded Democrat who had never contributed to a Republican before. Elon probably was also. I also thought it inappropriate that a very close friend of Elon, who is in the space business, running NASA, when NASA is such a big part of Elon's corporate life. My number one charge is to protect the American public. So Trump felt that this is a conflict of interest to have your guy in here. Also, he's very opposed to our ideals in general, and I just don't think it's the best idea. And so you got Elon, I think, pissed about that, pissed about other things. Whether he was mad about the EV mandate or not, I don't know. Trump says he was. I'm not sure if that's what it was or not, because he knew Trump ran on that from the beginning. But now he's trying to go in there and do this third party. Like, I'm just telling you, it won't work. It won't work. It can't work. Doesn't mean I'm happy about that. I wish there was like 4 or 5 parties that had legitimate chances, okay? And 3 of them being highly conservative. That would be I would be fine with that. It's just at this point, you're just you're gonna peel off some people from the Republican Party. All right, Charlie Kirk confirms there is a mass amnesty push for President Trump going on behind the scenes here.
President Donald Trump signed the big, beautiful bill on Independence Day on July 4th, signaling a massive legislative accomplishment. Tax cut, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, huge investment in border security, $175 billion for ICE. We're going to talk more about the profundity and the importance of this bill, but it is of great urgent necessity that we cover what is coming next. And yes, we are going to talk about Epstein. We're also going to have live coverage from the awful and the unspeakable tragedy happening in Kerr County and near Hunt, Texas. Just a national tragedy with the flooding issue in Texas. But you would think that, hey, we get $175 billion for ICE. We're going to get mass deportations. We're going to be able to have now the largest deportation effort ever. Yes, in theory, but in practice, there's something else afoot. Literally, the day before President Donald Trump was signing the big, beautiful bill, I got a couple phone calls from people that you would call members of the ruling class. A lot of money and a lot of connections. They said, Charlie, isn't this amazing? We passed the big, beautiful bill. I said, oh, yes, sir. And they said, now we need mass amnesty. What? I said, we haven't even signed the bill yet. They said, yeah, these deportations, we're going to lose the midterms because of the deportations. The people on the right, they'll understand. And we need to come to the middle, and we need to legalize the 25 million people here in this country. I was speechless. Because here I am actually thinking, a little naive, we're going to sign this big, beautiful bill, and we're actually going to get mass deportations uninterrupted from an asymmetrical attack. So we have somewhere between 20 to 50 million illegal aliens in this country. We don't actually know the numbers. These are all guesstimates. These are all just approximations. And there is a movement afoot as I am doing this broadcast. And this is bigger than anything with Epstein. This is bigger than anything with tax cuts. It is happening right now in Washington, D.C. And I can say this from firsthand experience, that people are pushing President Trump for amnesty. They are pushing him for mass legalization of illegals. Now, President Donald Trump, of course, would never push for amnesty. But President Donald Trump said something at a rally on July 3rd, and my phone lit up like you wouldn't imagine. President Donald Trump was talking about potentially doing a bipartisan compromise deal for illegals that have stolen Social Security numbers, that are illegally domiciling themselves here in the country, that are all felons. Every single one of them are felons. They're just not yet indicted felons. But if they're here illegally, you're a felon. It's against federal law. We've gone through all the different federal laws that you break by being here. And this is President Donald Trump speaking at the Iowa rally saying that we might need to do some form, he didn't use the word amnesty, but some form of soft amnesty. And I could tell you now through other reporting that I've been able to do and phone calls, there is a major push right now to do a bipartisan amnesty deal, a major push. People are trying to push the president. Hey, you got the money for ICE. Now we need to go move to the middle on immigration. Play cut 258.
People have worked for on a farm for 14, 15 years, and they get thrown out pretty viciously, and we can't do it. We got to work with the farmers and people that have hotels and leisure properties too. We're going to work with them, and we're going to work very strong and smart, and we're going to put you in charge. We're going to make you responsible, and I think that that's going to make a lot of people happy. Tom Homan. And we're working on legislation right now. Susie, right? We're working on legislation right now where farmers, look, they know better. They work with them for years. You had cases where, not here, but.
All right, so it's glitching out a little bit there, but basically, President Trump's been floating this idea for some people to be able to stay in the country. And so I opened the show talking about this, in that, in principle, you just deport every single person who's here illegally. That sounds really good. It's really clean. It's really easy to make that distinction. I just don't think this is a black and white issue. As hard as that is for me to admit, when you have people that have, President Trump is right on this. You don't have to like it. I don't like it. It's the mess that other people have gotten us in. But unfortunately, we have a lot of people here that have been here for a long time that have been doing right as far as paying their taxes, not breaking the law, and doing a good job. And if you're going to rip all of those people out, and I guarantee you, there's got to be people that you probably know, that you probably, if you met them or if you know them already, you like them. They seem like the kind of people we want here. But you don't realize, hey, they're actually here illegally. But they're actually contributing more to society than a lot of American citizens. They're not getting in trouble. They're paying their taxes. They're hardworking. And if you just rip all of those people out of this country in certain industries, you are going to have a real problem. It is going to do some real damage to our economy. It just is. I didn't create that problem. I didn't create this idea. I'm just looking at reality. If you pull all those people out, this isn't about humanity or empathy. Okay, even though that is a factor, but I'm not coming at it from that point. I'm coming at it from logical effect of taking the very kinds of people that we want in this country out, even though they didn't come in during this time period of mass illegal immigration during again, if somebody has been here for 10 years, they haven't gotten in trouble with all, they pay their taxes, and they have a job, I think there has to be some status, not full amnesty, not U.S. citizenship, but some way that they stay here, pay a fine. They can't become a U.S. citizen. They can't vote. Their employer pays a fine. But you create a possibility for them to stay, but they have to pay. And you're still upholding the integrity of the law for the people that come over the border or, become U.S. citizens the right way. I wish it weren't the case. But go talk to some of these people who, have been working here in this country for a long time, or industries that, you could argue, well, they're breaking the law. True, but they can't get other people to do these jobs and still be able to make a profit in some senses. And so it's maybe they have a primarily cash business, and this is who they hire, and they don't ask questions. So, it's just reality. We can pretend that, everything's perfect here and it's black and white and that this can be done. Take into account there's no statistically possible way we can deport everybody that's here illegally. We would have to be deporting and sending back like 100,000 people a day for the entire rest of the Trump administration. And we're not even anywhere near those numbers. So I would be of the view of saying, all right, let's get all the criminals out, all the criminals first, and then say, okay, you're not a criminal, but you've only been here for 3 years. Figure out some parameter where the people that have been here a long time, you're not coming after them first, and you sort of work your way in that direction is a possibility. And then you go, all right, well, actually, we've deported X amount of people. So, and then you make a decision on whether or not you'll deport the people that have been here longer. Because there's no sense in going after them right now. You can't get to all of them because it's statistically impossible. So you start with the low-hanging fruit, which they're doing, and work your way through that as fast as you can. Then you can make decisions. But I'm just telling you, and that would allow time for things to be adjusted until you get to that point where you're like, okay, let's start hiring some other, people or whatever. But no one's been willing to solve this problem because of this particular issue with the workforce. No one has solved it. There's a reason, because it's a really tough thing to do, because you're going to make half the people mad, half the people happy, or actually probably potentially nobody happy fully, because you're not doing enough for one side and you're doing too much for one. I'm just telling you, if you want to solve it, if you want to stay in this limbo period, I mean, if you're under the impression that President Trump is going to be able to deport all of the illegal immigrants during his next 3.5 years, I'm sorry, but the math won't math on that one. It just won't. And so with that being the reality, what's the next best scenario? Regardless, we got people taking matters into their own hands because of the crazy freaking left-wing media who are trying to gaslight and activate and outrage people. 3 federal and Texas law enforcement sources tell Bill Malugin with Fox News an active shooter with a rifle and tactical gear ambushed Border Patrol agents as they arrived at a Border Patrol annex facility in McAllen, Texas this morning. Local police and federal agents returned fire, killing the man. Told this was a purposeful ambush attack against the federal agents, and a press conference was planned for earlier this morning. No federal agents were injured, although one McAllen police officer may have been shot, but is in stable condition. So more and more, these crazy people are coming out against Border Patrol and ICE because of the crazy liberal media. Iranian president says Iran does not want to kill Trump and does not have any sleeper cells in the U.S. Do you believe him? Well, apparently that's what he told Tucker Carlson.
An assassination attempt against Donald Trump.
This is actually what Netanyahu is trying to insinuate and to make your people or the president of your country to believe. But this is wrong, because Netanyahu, as I said, has its own agenda. It wants to drag the U.S. into forever wars, as I said, and to bring more insecurity, instability, and unrest to the whole region.
There are some large number of Iranian nationals living in the United States. Some have said they are, quote, sleeper cells. They are terrorists who are acting at the command of your government. Would you right now make a statement to Iranian citizens living in the United States not to commit acts of violence in the United States?
You see, these things you're telling me, this is the first time I'm hearing them from you or from anybody. The Iranians are known for their knowledge, for their science, for their courtesy, for being civilized. Have you seen otherwise from them? Any other kind of behavior from them, or any violent behavior? Has anybody ever seen anything from them? Yeah, as I said, this is what Israel is trying to put into your minds. They are propagating that Iranians might be capable of doing such a thing, but this is totally untrue, because by nature Iranians are pro peace and tranquility, and they're trying to actually to somehow impact the minds of the decision makers and the people of the United States, and to scare them into getting involved in a war in my region that is not going to ensure any kind of interest for the United States. It is not to be in the interest of the United States to be involved in any kind of war in my region.
All right. So do you believe them? I mean, we know that they have carried out plots against assassination of Trump. Last year, there were 2 different individuals apprehended. So basically, Iran saying, well, it's just Israel is just confusing you. I mean, obviously, they, as Trump said, they don't know what they're doing. They've been fighting for so long. They don't know what the. All right. So there's blame on how people are carrying certain propaganda out or messaging out potentially. But I just I don't know that I can believe Iran. You know what I'm saying? Patriot Grandma says I call BS. Fly-Fi says if we're going to allow some of those people to save some back taxes, I would say if you haven't paid your taxes and you're here illegally, you're out. Like literally, it's only the people that have paid taxes, not been in trouble with the law, and maybe they've been here for 7 years, 10 years. David Sling says 5 years. I mean, whatever that line is statistically, I would like them here a little bit longer. You could even go a little further and say you have to speak English. I mean, let's just say we line out all the parameters and say, okay, yeah, they can stay here under a certain work status if they are all these things. And I say you're kind of strict with it depending on where the numbers are. And it's like, well, there's only 50,000 people that will be able to stay. Then you go, okay, well, we'll relax it a little bit. Say, okay, maybe you've been here less. But I mean, I would be required. To me, it would be a win-win because you're looking, compassionate toward people, but you're setting the parameters of who you want in this country, and you're not giving them full rights. But if you said, you have to have paid your taxes, you couldn't have been in trouble with the law for as long as you've been here. You've been here for 8 years, and you have to speak English. And then you can have, the golden visa status or the Trump work permit status. You can't vote. I don't see the reason to give these people citizenship. We're trying to just keep them working and not being menaces to society. But I don't see why they should get U.S. citizenship unless you make them go through a more strenuous process than the people that are actually coming over here the right way and becoming citizens. You know what I mean? Fly-Fi says, Iran are cowards. It's in their name. I ran. C-spot run. They're cowards. They love to run. That's why they named them Iran. They've been running ever since. Okay. All right. All right. Here's an interesting clip. This is what newly sworn in American citizens who entered the country legally see. A special video from President Trump.
This is congratulations. Today you receive one of the most priceless gifts ever granted by human hands. You become a citizen of the United States of America. What an honor. It is with great pride and wisdom in so many different ways, because you have such great wisdom, that I welcome you into our national family. No matter where you come from, you now share a home and a heritage with some of the most exceptional heroes, legends, and patriots to ever walk the face of the earth. All of the triumphs and glories of American history now belong to you. You have it in your being. You have it like nobody's had it before. With this sacred honor comes the highest responsibility. As you know, the American way of life is unique in all the world, and as Americans, we must fiercely guard it and defend it. In this country, we believe in hard work and merit system, and equality of opportunity. We believe in self-government and the fair and equal and impartial rule of law. And we cherish our liberty and our God-given rights to free speech, free exercise of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. This special American culture is now yours to preserve. Your freedoms are now yours to protect. Our entire nation is now yours to love and to help build. And we trust that you will do a fantastic job and make us very, very proud. Congratulations once again. God bless you, and God bless America.
All right. Probably make some people, proud to be Americans right then, right? Message from President Trump to newly sworn in American citizens who entered the country legally. We want them here. We want them here legally. We don't want the crime. We want them out. All right, I'm just going to gloss over this one here because I did have some of these remarks prepared. But this Zoran Mamdani, this guy who is the Democrat nominee, did you know his mother was welcome as a student at Harvard? By the way, this guy lied on an application, said he was African-American, by the way, to get into college. So he identified as black. I didn't know it. All of a sudden, he was black. Kind of like Kamala. That's weird. Anyway, despite the fact they were not born or raised in America, Zoran Mamdani's mother was welcomed as a student at Harvard, and his father is a professor at Columbia, two of the most elite American institutions. His father originally came to the U.S. as a sponsored college scholarship student from East Africa in a program funded by wealthy American foundations, with its principal funding arranged by then presidential candidate John F. Kennedy. His maternal grandfather was a member of the ultra-elite Indian Administration Service. His father was able to go to Uganda to make their fortune thanks to a cosmopolitan nature of the British Empire. After Ugandan independence, his father's family was dispossessed and expelled from Uganda by the radical black nationalism of Idi Amin. Anyway, this guy is very privileged. Okay, very privileged. His father is a radical. Okay. Here's a little bit of his dad.
And that political project was to turn Germany into a pure nation. A pure nation rid of its minorities. When the Allies defeated the Nazis and went into Eastern Europe, they began to create pure nations to ethnically cleanse Eastern Europe of Germans, move them back into Germany. One crime doesn't wipe out another. A Christian nation state decides to cleanse it of all religious minorities, Jews and Muslims in particular, and at the same time launches a colonization experiment, the discovery of the Americas. I argue that nationalism and colonialism are not two different things. America is the genesis of what we call settler colonialism. And the American model was exported all around the world. In America, you have two kinds of minorities that have run the course of the history of the modern American state. The American Indian and the African American. Each has a different significance for our contemporary era. The American Indians were the people on that land when the settlers conquered it. First, they tried to eliminate as many Indians as possible. This was the first recorded genocide in modern history. Then with the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories. For the Nazis.
All right. So basically, he's comparing Americans, early settlers, to
for the Nazis.
The Nazis. Okay. Yeah. Seems like a real reasonable guy. He is a radical, and his son has identified as black to be able to get into college, just like Pocahontas is identified as Native American. Timmy McBride identifies as a woman, and of course, Joe Biden identified as sharp as a tack. You remember that? So this Mamdani guy is privileged. He is a liar, but he's actually very good, I think, for the conversation when it comes to President Trump having sort of a villain to point at, even though he's not a presidential candidate. It's you have this radical Marxist communist dude in New York City, and he is sort of, going to be Trump's potentially new punching bag, because the policies that Mamdani is advocating for, one, his religion completely violates, his Muslim religion violates certain views that he has expressed on LGBTQ stuff. Which one does he actually believe? I think he's an ear tickler. He's telling people what they want to hear. Oh, a bunch of free stuff. Yeah. Right the wrongs. Yeah. He acts like he's, comes from these humble beginnings. That's not true. He's just telling people what they want to hear, but these policies don't work. And it's actually going to be, this is precisely what the Democrat Party doesn't need. What the Democrat Party needs in order to survive and strengthen is to come back to the middle, because they have alienated so many people. So then you get this truly off the chart leftist in there, and he is just going to create so much material and fodder for critique because of what he's advocating for. So it's actually going to work, I think, very well for Republicans, because they can point to the poster child of radical left Marxism, who's not, he's like calling himself a socialist. Like he's trying to move the Overton window to say it's acceptable to be a socialist when we have historical accounts of that failing miserably. But he's more than just a socialist, and these policies won't work. So it's an easy way to point at, hey, here's the poster child, here's the villain. I don't know so much that people are in love with him as they are totally creating a referendum on Andrew Cuomo's disastrous governor policies during COVID. I'm not sure what it's more about. If New Yorkers are like, no, we saw what he did during COVID, how many people died because of his incompetence, and they're just voting for another guy, or it's that people truly have the mindset of communist Marxist ideologies in New York City, or just a bunch of dumb people who don't do their research and say, hey, this guy seems like he's well spoken, just kind of like the Obama thing, like, oh, he's different enough, seems to be knowing what he's talking about, he's not an old guy, okay, I'll vote for him. He wants to tax white neighborhoods at higher rates. No lie, he said that. That's not hearsay. And he's called to globalize the intifada, ridding the world of Jews. He is advocated for a rent freeze. Okay. He's creating the best commercial for leaving New York City. A rent freeze. When you do a rent freeze, you totally jack with the property rights for one, but also the property value. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to create people who do not want to own property in New York City. So that's what you have when it comes to Mamdani. We're going to continue to probably talk about him because, again, he represents everything that is wrong with when leftism goes too far. When liberal policies go too far, you have the birth of a Mamdani. And that is why, it's going to continue to be talked about. Okay. If you'd like to support the work we're doing, you value the content we're creating for you, and you want to support what we're doing, we have 0 contributions on the board. If you would like to help out, you can do so right now via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com, Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com, or in the chat on Rumble. Please do so right now. Cash App or Venmo, $5, $10, $20, whatever it is that you would like to do. I do appreciate some people over on TikTok giving some of those emoji gifts. I appreciate Nancy and Angie. It's very hard to tell how much is actually on the board. I would guess probably about 85 cents based on the value of some of these emojis. I do appreciate you guys being willing to throw those at us. TikTok does take 60% of whatever you give. We would love for people to contribute via Cash App or Venmo right now at IkeReport.com. Now, if you missed at the very beginning of the show, we covered a lot of the lack of Epstein files, the client list, etc. We went all through that. So if you missed the beginning of the show, make sure you check it out. Of course, as we get toward the end of the show, we must, of course, play today's Triggered Liberal.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
Well, today's Triggered Liberal is the big, beautiful Rosie O'Donnell.
And what a horror story in Texas. The flash floods in Texas, the Guadalupe River. 51 missing, 51 dead, more missing. Children at a camp. And you know, when the president guts all of the early warning systems and the weathering forecast abilities of the government, these are the results that we're going to start to see on a daily basis, because he's put this country in so much danger by his horrible, horrible decisions and this ridiculously immoral bill that he just signed into law. As Republicans cheered, people will die as a result, and they've started already. Shame on him. Shame on every GOP sycophant who's listening and following the disastrous decisions of this mentally incapacitated POTUS.
Now you're willing to call someone mentally incapacitated. You weren't doing that when literally Joe Biden couldn't put 2 sentences together. I mean, cry me a river, no pun intended, but this woman is deranged. Literally blaming the floods on Trump and saying this bill that is actually going to lower Americans' taxes, create dignity to put people back to work, and is going to secure our border is because they're sycophants. Rosie O'Donnell is literally insane. She lives in Ireland now because she just can't take living here. Or maybe she's on the Epstein list. I don't know. We'll never know because they're not going to give it to us. But she's totally psycho. We know that. I think we can agree on that. That is literally what Trump derangement syndrome looks like on a face. Okay? And it is a handsome face at that. Oh my gosh, look at that face. A face only a mother could love. The face of TDS, Rosie O'Donnell.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
That's it. The show's over. 0 contributions. If you would like to change that, you can do so quickly right now via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com. Cash App or Venmo. We have our unique link set up at IkeReport.com for Cash App or Venmo. Please consider helping us out right now so we can continue to bring this content to you. The plan right now is to be back with you Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the plan right now. If you are a member of Ike Nation in the locals group, which is free, I post in there when we're going to have a show, so you will always know. But, of course, set your notifications on. But the plan is Thursday. Wednesday could happen. We'll see. Tomorrow is not happening for sure. I cannot do a show tomorrow. But hopefully we can get in on the noon time with our collaboration with the Died Suddenly channel. We'll be back with them. And then try to land at a consistent time if we can. Okay, So that's the plan right now. It could change. I could tell you tomorrow that I'm doing something different and the show's over. Or I could tell you, hey, we finally got notice. Somebody's giving us an opportunity, based on all the work we put in. I don't know. I could flip a coin right now. I mean, it doesn't matter what I do. It just matters what happens. But we're trying to do some other things to generate income that are occupying time. And I want to continue to do this show to stay up to date on things and deliver the information to you. I'm sorry it's not with you every day, but I just can't continue to devote every day to this and still lose a lot of money. If I devote a couple days a week and lose money, that's one thing. But every single day and losing money, it's just not tenable. Okay. And the only way I've been able to volunteer for this long is because savings that I've been living off of. But it's coming to an end here, and so something has to give. But I will stay with you as long as I possibly can. And Thursday's the next chance, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central. If that changes, I will post inside of the Ike Nation Locals community, which you can find at ikenation.locals.com. Have yourself a great Monday, my friends. Remember, never stop being a free and critical thinker, because the truth is always worth it. Right?
Rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It's how we get the word out amidst the chaos. Thanks for listening to the Ike Wingate Show.